good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are watching from. Welcome to Favorite News. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Thank you. Today, you're watching the Evening Bulletin. Our top story tonight: growing international pressure on Niger, as Germany joins its European partners in responding to the ongoing political crisis following the 2023 military coup. The move comes amid rising tensions between the military-led government in Niger and Western nations, with concerns mounting over security, democracy, and the future of the Sahel region. Germany has formally aligned itself with the European Union in applying coordinated diplomatic pressure on Niger's ruling junta. At the heart of the crisis is the continued detention of former President Mohamed Bazoum, who was overthrown in July 2023 by military forces led by General Abdurrahmane Chiani. Nearly 3 years on, Bazoum remains under house arrest, a situation the EU has repeatedly described as unacceptable. The coup marked a turning point for Niger, once considered a key Western ally in the fight against Islamist insurgency in the Sahel. Now, the country finds itself increasingly isolated from its former partners. Germany's latest position reflects a broader European strategy to apply sustained diplomatic and economic pressure on Niger's leadership in the hope of restoring constitutional order. Berlin has backed EU calls demanding the immediate release of Mohamed Bazoum, a clear timeline for a return to democratic governance, respect for human rights and international law. In addition, Germany has scaled back its presence in Niger, withdrawing embassy staff amid growing concerns over security. From Berlin, officials say the decision is not only about democratic principles but also about stability. Germany views Niger as a critical part of the wider Sahel region, an area facing increasing threats from extremist groups. There are also concerns about migration routes and regional spillover, which could have direct implications for Europe. The Sahel, stretching across West and Central Africa, has become a hotspot for instability. In recent years, several countries in the region have experienced military coups, including Mali and Burkina Faso. In response to Western pressure, Niger's military government has pushed back strongly. Officials in Niamey accuse the EU and Germany of interfering in domestic affairs, arguing that the country has the sovereign right to determine its own political future. Public demonstrations in support of the junta have taken place, with some protesters expressing anti-European sentiment. Meanwhile, Niger has begun to strengthen ties with alternative international partners, particularly Russia, signaling a potential shift in geopolitical alignment. This development reflects a broader trend across the Sahel, where several military-led governments have distanced themselves from Western influence. So, what does Germany's involvement mean? Analysts say Berlin's decision to join EU pressure is significant. As one of Europe's largest economies and a key political actor, Germany's backing strengthens the EU's collective stance. However, questions remain over how effective this pressure will be. There are concerns that sanctions and diplomatic isolation may push Niger further away from Europe, rather than encouraging a return to democracy. Others argue that failing to act would set a dangerous precedent for future coups in the region. For now, the situation remains tense. Niger's leadership shows little sign of yielding to international demands, and with security conditions deteriorating, the risk of further instability continues to grow. Germany's decision to stand alongside the European Union marks another chapter in an already complex crisis, one that carries implications far beyond Niger's borders. New footage shows protests in the capital, Niamey, as demonstrators react to calls from Europe demanding the release of ousted President Mohamed Bazoum. Crowds have taken to the streets of Niamey, waving national flags and chanting slogans in support of the country's military leadership. Many protesters are expressing anger at what they see as foreign interference, particularly from European nations including Germany. Placards and chants accuse Western governments of attempting to impose their will on Niger's internal affairs. Here's a clip showing the protest against EU pressure. We'll be back shortly after you've watched the clip.
d'affaires in Niamey to protest a European Parliament measure demanding the release of former President Mohamed Bazoum. The foreign ministry handed an official letter of protest Thursday, condemning what it called interference in Niger's internal affairs and a paternalistic and condescending attitude. The text, adopted overwhelmingly with 524 votes in favor, calls for the immediate and unconditional release of Bazoum, who has been detained with his wife since the July 2023 coup. His presidential term expires in April 2nd. The motion notes Bazoum's immunity was lifted in 2024 and the junta has vowed to prosecute him for high treason, which carries the death penalty. No verifiable
Studio anchor extended closing. As you've watched the clip, the video tells a story far beyond a single political dispute. What we are seeing unfold in Niger is part of a much wider shift, one that is reshaping alliances, testing international influence, and raising serious questions about the future of democracy in the region. Germany's decision to stand alongside the European Union is not just symbolic. It signals a unified European stance, one that is attempting to apply pressure through diplomacy rather than force. But as we've seen, that pressure is being met with firm resistance from Niger's military leadership. And this is where the situation becomes more complex. Because while Europe calls for the release of Mohamed Bazoum and a return to constitutional order, Niger's rulers, led by Abdourahmane Chiani, are redefining their position on the global stage. They are rejecting Western influence and increasingly looking elsewhere for support. For Germany, this is not simply a foreign policy issue happening thousands of miles away. It is directly tied to regional stability, migration flows, and security concerns that can have real consequences across Europe. The Sahel region, already fragile, now stands at a crossroads. Continued isolation could deepen instability, yet a lack of pressure risks normalizing military takeovers. So the question remains, can diplomatic pressure from Europe, now strengthened by Germany's involvement, actually bring about change? Or will it accelerate a shift away from Western partnerships altogether? For now, there are no clear answers. What is clear, however, is that this story is still developing, and its outcome will not only shape the future of Niger, but could redefine Europe's role in Africa for years to come. That's all for today's news. Stay tuned for more updates. We will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.